Could you give us a roll call?
Yes. Counselor Cassett? Here. Counselor Chavez?
Could you
Here.
give us a? I didn't hear that.
Counselor Lee Garcia?
Here.
Counselor Michael Garcia?
Present.
Counselor Rivera?
Here.
Counselor Romero Worth?
I'm here.
Councilwoman Villarreal?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindell?
I'm here.
Perfect. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Counselor Garcia, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes,
Everyone
Madam Pro
wants-
Tem Mayor. Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Public.
and which stands one nation.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rivera, are you able to lead us in the salute to the New Mexico flag?
Sure. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship amongst united cultures.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Cassette, would you give us an invocation and lead us into remembrances?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much. So I recently have been reading some books by Brene Brown. If you have not read her work, you should. She writes a lot about shame and vulnerability and empathy. And some of her quotes and some of her work really talk about leadership and what it takes to be a leader and to do this work. And I was really thinking about the complex issues that we are faced with every day. And at the end of the day, how we have to make a decision and the importance that it really is that we come to the table with the ability to ask questions, to learn new things, and therefore admit that we may have previously not had all the information and therefore maybe are seeing things differently. And that takes a lot of bravery to do that when it's in the public sphere, because a lot of times we are expected to have perfection and to know things right away and to not jump into the nuance, and the nuance can be a little bit scary. So there's two quotes that I wanted to read. The first one says, "To me, a leader is someone who holds her or himself accountable for finding potential in people and processes." And for me, this really spoke to, we often find a lot of problems, but where is it that we find the solutions for these problems, even if they are not perfect solutions? And the second one is, if you don't understand vulnerability, you cannot manage and lead people. If you're not showing up vulnerably as a leader, you can't expect anyone to follow you, period. And I will pass it over to you for remembrances.
Thank you, Counselor. Let's be seated. Do we have any remembrances tonight? Counselor Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, I'd just like to remember a former teacher of mine who passed away. I think it was yesterday, a couple of days ago. He belongs to the confraternity, Los Hermanos, that I belong to. So he's a brother, an hermano. And he was my teacher in high school. Really great man, Spanish teacher. He was a lawyer. His name is Ted Trujillo, and really had a really big part of him was to teach and teach people about culture and where we came from, and that there's not just one way. There's different ways, and we all have we have to have the ability to understand a different perspective. And so I just wanted to remember him tonight. A good influence on me and many others in the northern part of the state. And rest in peace. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Counselor Villarreal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to recognize the life of Clarissa Duran, who was tragically killed by a drunk driver. She was from Española, and she did a lot of community work. She was a mentor. She was a social worker and activist, and taken too soon. So I just wanted to send my love to her family and friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. I see a hand up on the screen. Is that one that? Okay. That the cursor is, okay. I want to take a moment and recognize my decades-long friend, Porter Dillon. Porter and I were friends for decades. Lots of people in town knew Porter and were friends with her. Porter was in the initial class at Santa Fe Prep. She had a catering company in town for many, many years. She was one of the truest animal advocates that I ever met in my life. No animal was a stranger to her. She ran a catering company in town here for many years. She grew up here. And Porter and I danced a lot of miles together. I thought we had some more in front of us. Checked out a little bit earlier than I thought was appropriate. But I have some magnificent memories of great times with the person that I called Porter Rip Snorter. She'll be missed by this town, and I'll miss her tremendously. So let's have a moment of silence for those people. Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor.
I just want to join you in remembering Porter Dillon. She's a constituent, was a constituent. She also made incredible food, as you've referenced, and she was a tremendous friend, I guess, of my children when they were young, and really let them help her on her catering assignments and in her cooking. And I was very shocked when I opened the paper because I agree with you, Counselor. She was taken too soon, and thought she had a lot left to offer us. So I join you in that remembrance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Yeah, she's was so dynamic and so fun. Always loved running into Porter. So let's take a moment and give our thoughts to these folks and anyone else that needs our consideration and affirmations. Thank you all very much. Okay. Madam Clerk, it says on my agenda that now we should do the roll call, but I jumped the gun on that. So we've got that behind us. Bear with me. I haven't sat in this chair for a while. The mayor just texted me and said, good luck with the meeting. And I texted back and said, I need it. So we'll get through it. And I can guarantee you that we won't be here until 3:30. So next we have approval of the agenda. Does staff have any changes to the agenda? No changes from staff. Madam Clerk, can you let us know what items from the consent agenda have been pulled?
Yes.
Hold
First,
on
we'll
just a second.
do the-
Point of order. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. I think we need to approve the agenda first and then move to the consent agenda.
Thanks for the help. Can we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And we can do a voice vote on this, correct? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. So moving on to approval of the consent agenda. What items have been pulled, Madam Clerk?
Mayor Pro Dowell, three items were removed from the consent agenda tonight. Item J was removed by Counselor Michael Garcia, and then item N and P were removed by Mayor Pro Tem Lindell.
M and P, did you say? Yeah. Okay.
Move to
Have a
approve as
motion?
amended.
Second.
Can we do a voice vote on this? No? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Mayor Pro Tem Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Mara Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Yes.
Item has been approved. Consent agenda has been approved as amended.
Thank you. Next up, presentations. We're gonna hear first from Ms. Oster and Mr. Bejarano concerning the audit update. Thank you. Welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like me to read the item into?
Please.
Okay, perfect. It's item 8A. It's fiscal year 21 audit update presented by Emily Oster, our finance director, and Ricky Bejarano, our chief accounting officer.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council.
Is your mic on? It's brand new, so sorry about that.
It was on.
Testing. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. Progress continues with the audit. At this stage, we're still with CLA, who are our consultants, accounting and audit readiness consultants. We have currently 5 members of CLA working on our project. One member was with us last week, going through the cash system, the 11 point of sale systems that feed into cash. And she was documenting and will also propose improvements. We also will have 2 additional members next week and the week following on site. And while they're on site, the other remaining 3 will continue working remotely. I spoke with our external auditors, Carr, Riggs, and Ingram today. They're on track to provide the listing of items needed to start the 2021 and 22 audits. And their projection is they will provide that listing in complete listing by the middle of the month of November. And that's according to their schedule. And then the audit will begin in earnest December 1st. Some of the items that CLA is currently working on are revolve around cash, which is a huge part of their scope of work currently, with the 11 point of sale systems, understanding how everything feeds into the old E1 system, how everything goes into Munis, and how everything will be going into the Munis system once it's upgraded. So they're also doing work in anticipation of the upgrade and changes that could potentially come. They're also working on fixed assets. There's a GASB statement 87 that's going to be critical for 22. So they're working towards rolling fixed assets forward as well. They're also began meeting with us on a weekly basis to go over in detail with both the finance director, myself, and members of the team as they're needed. Where they are working with our team specifically, item by item. In some cases, they'll be working with program managers directly. And so work is continuing, progress is moving quickly, and we expect it's going to start really moving even more quickly within the next month. And with that, I stand for questions on this portion.
Ms. Oster, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council, we thought it would be a good opportunity to give an update on how capital infrastructure investments are impacted by the city's audit status. So I'm pleased to be joined tonight by Director Wheeler from Public Works, and will be providing you with additional information on how the city's audit status affects the capital infrastructure projects that the city has going on. So as we all know, the city is behind on annual financial statement audits, and this is a serious administrative concern that does have impacts. The finance department has taken ownership of this problem, and we're working, as Mr. Bejarano just described, to get those audits completed as soon as possible. And we're making a lot of progress. We are underway, and work is proceeding on both the FY21 and FY22 audits. Currently, one of the primary impacts to capital infrastructure projects is on the city's ability to execute new agreements for funding from some recent legislative capital appropriations. So before I dive in too much on the detail of that, I just want to zoom out and acknowledge that we've talked about pieces of this in different contexts and in different meetings, but we haven't really brought it all together. So what we hope to do tonight, and the reason that Director Wheeler and I are presenting together, is to try to give you the full picture of how capital infrastructure projects are affected by where we're at with the audits. So here in New Mexico, most capital infrastructure projects are funded through a variety of sources. It's very rare for a single appropriation to fully fund an entire project. So if you could keep that in mind as you're listening to my comments. So as I mentioned, there are some capital infrastructure projects that have legislative appropriations where we are not able to execute new agreements for recent legislative capital appropriations. There is one water trust board project currently that's funded as a combination of a low interest loan and a grant that is also impacted. I really want to emphasize that this does not mean that all capital improvements are on hold. Many projects are moving forward, and Director Wheeler has a great presentation with photographs to take you through, which projects those are and show you the progress that's being made, which is significant. As I mentioned, capital infrastructure funding is very often cobbled together from multiple sources, and it is administered on a reimbursement basis, meaning that the city spends the money up front and then requests reimbursement from the funding agencies. And it's extremely rare, as I mentioned, for one single appropriation from the legislature or any other source to fully fund an entire project. The city invariably will have to contribute money or find sources of money to fully fund these projects. Agreements for funding appropriated from the 2020 legislative session are in place, and the city's reimbursement requests are being paid. I know that question had come up, so we have not been denied any reimbursement requests. So for those agreements that we've been able to get in place, the reimbursements are being paid. We are in communication with DFA and the New Mexico Finance Authority, which is the administrator for the Water Trust Board, about the fiscal year 2021 and 2022 appropriations. I absolutely want to address the concern that funding may have been lost. That is not the case. No funding has been lost, and no funding is at risk of loss at this time. I want to add a little bit more background to that. Legislative capital appropriations are done multi-year. For example, the 2022 capital outlay bill, which was Senate Bill 212, contains language that states that generally speaking, the unexpended balance from those appropriations, which are funded through severance tax bonds, revert to the severance tax bonding fund no later than the end of fiscal year 2026. So for 2022, we would have till 2026 to expend those funds. There are different timelines for projects with appropriations that have been made to match federal grants and to purchase certain types of tangible personal property, such as vehicles, heavy equipment, books, and educational technology. And those may have even longer timeframes, but generally speaking, it's 4 years. If timing does become a concern, which I don't expect it to, based on the June 30th timeline for the submission of the audits, there is a process to request reauthorization of legislative capital appropriations, And it's common. And to illustrate that, I want to highlight that Senate Bill 213 from 2022 reauthorized over 120 previously funded capital outlay appropriations. So I really want to reiterate, no funding has been lost, and we're not at risk of that based on the June 30th timeline for the submission of the FY21 and FY22 audits. Another important funding source for capital infrastructure is bonding. And you may have seen that we just issued a press release this afternoon, which announces that Fitch Ratings, which is an independent rating agency, this week affirmed the city of Santa Fe's bond rating at the AA+ level with a stable outlook. So what that means is that an outside party, an independent rating agency, took a look at the city's financials. They submitted multiple requests to the finance department and to other parts of the city. We worked closely with public utilities as well to submit a lot of documentation to them for their review process over the last couple of weeks. And they came back with an affirmation of that AA+ rating and a stable outlook. So that is very good news for the city. And when we are ready to do a bond issue, we'll be in a good position to get access to credit at a low interest rate. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Director Wheeler.
Thank you so much, Director Oster and Madam Chair, members of the governing body. I'll add just a few comments to Director Oster's comments. And then I also was going to show a quick slideshow just to presence all of the great capital project work that is going on around the city. We do have quite a robust program. So when we talk about legislative funding, legislative capital appropriations, that's just one small piece of our overall capital planning and deployment effort, as Director Oster said. Most capital projects are funded from multiple sources, some money from the city, DOT, impact fees, NMED, other grants are possible, state water revolving loan funds. So all of the projects that I will show you actually are funded by multiple sources that way. Capital infrastructure planning and deployment is a citywide effort. All staff is involved across the city attorney's office, finance office, the project offices, all of the operating agencies like Community Health and Safety Department. So it is a citywide effort, and it's really going quite well. The governing body, of course, is a huge part of that in setting priorities in our capital plan and approving appropriations as necessary to match some of the funds and keep the projects moving. And another thing worth mentioning is that the city is spending funds effectively. We've done a really good job of spending on our legislative appropriations that we have received and executed. And I think that'll tell a really good story at the session this year. And we are in very good standing with DFA regarding spending the money that we've been given, as well as with our other grant agencies, including DOT, the Environment Department, and other granting agencies. So I'll just do a quick little survey. Some of the great things that are happening. Oh, it's up, great. And this is just a survey of a number of facilities projects, roadway and trail projects, stormwater projects, and parks projects. It's not exhaustive. It's mostly an excerpt from a presentation that was made at Public Works Committee in July, as well as some new updates. So of course, the bicentennial pool, that was a big, gigantic, important project that we finished in time for a great season this year. It was a complete rebuild of that pool that had been built many years ago. And so it's an exciting new facility. The downtown restrooms, half funded by a legislative appropriation and half funded by the city, was ribbon cut this year. The Southside Teen Center is well underway. If anybody's been over there, it's really exciting to see it really taking shape. And that is funded by 2 legislative appropriations in separate years and city appropriation. We have the Santa Fe Train Depot. This project actually started with a grant that was received for the assessment and design, and the governing body appropriated funds for this reconstruction of this depot. It's well underway and planning to be done in the spring. We have the big gigantic solar project that has water conservation and energy conservation in it. The legislature gave us $925,000 in response to the governing body's #1 capital request in 2019. Those $925,000 are completely spent, as well as another about $7 million against the project, which is a total of $15.5 million, and will result in 17 solar arrays on facilities across the city. And we cut the ribbon on the array at the Southside Library a couple of weeks ago. And then there's all the roadway and trail projects. These are largely funded by NMED, but here's one area of roadway and trails is pavement rehabilitation, near and dear to everybody's heart. Governing body appropriated $2.9 million in those in fiscal year 22, and those projects were completed. And that was a great effort. And then there are, in addition to that, 9 roadway projects, 3 intersection projects, and 4 trail projects underway. And they include the Camino Entrada, which is the roundabout, which the ribbon will be cut for that on Friday. Really important piece of infrastructure for that growing part of town. The Cañada Rincon Trail, Guadalupe Street reconstruction. This is a massive project. It's only a mile of road, but project's been underway for about 6 years, and it's going into construction in the next few months, and it's fully funded. We just received $10 million from DOT for that. And then, of course, Agua Fria South Meadows and intersection improvements, that's going into construction very soon as well. The next year we'll start construction, and these projects are well underway. They're in the design and right-of-way acquisition, El Camino Real Trail, Agua Fria Cottonwood, Harrison Road, of course, and Tierra Contenta Trail extension. And then we're also working on Sandoval Montezuma intersection improvements. There's no pedestrian facilities at that intersection. Acequia Trail extension, Paseo del Sol West, which is the Tierra Contenta Phase 3 partnership. And that was funded by a grant so far from DOT for design, and that's well underway. And St. Michael's Drive underpass, that was also reappropriated funds from DOT. And then we have Henry Lynch Road reconstruction. You may be aware that's underway. We've had some public meetings about that, and that's a DOT funded for design, as well as Bishop's Lodge Road, adding bike lanes and sidewalks to both of those roadways. And then there's Arroyo de los Chamisos Crossing, which we just received, I think actually was on the agenda tonight, another $1 million towards design. So that project will keep on moving. And then there's a number of stormwater projects going on, and those are largely funded either by the stormwater fee directly or by a loan from NMED at 1% against our stormwater fee as a repayment mechanism. And some of these, especially in the first column, were repairs from the 2018 flood. So we had to move really quickly on those. And then other ones were identified as improvements to our stormwater infrastructure in the stormwater master plan that was adopted in 2019. And then there's parks projects. So it's a lot going on. Swan Park Fitness Course, of course, that's done. That was a great quick project. Swan Park Phase 2 is in design. Regal Park Slide is completed, as the governing body helped fund that. MRC Soccer Valley Lighting project complete. That was a partnership between the county and the city and a legislative appropriation. And that one is 95% complete, and the funds are all expended. Soccer Valley irrigation and landscape work, we're developing that project's also complete. That was another piece that went with the lighting, but there's more to do out there, as you know. MRC bathrooms have just gotten underway for a complete repair of all the bathrooms out there. They're in terrible shape. The tennis courts, we're doing remodels. You see here, all 3 of the tennis courts are on the list, and we're working through those. Baseball field renovations, trails upgrades. The Plaza Park, there was some improvements there. We had the benches and the new sod and some nice improvements there. Median beautification is in the planning stages, and Swan Park Phase 2 will come. So that's just sort of a high-level survey of a bunch of fabulous capital projects that are continuing on merrily right at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Wheeler.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. I just wanted to wrap up by just circling back to where we started. So although some funding sources used for capital infrastructure projects are impacted by the city's audit status, as Director Wheeler just so beautifully illustrated, projects are moving forward and significant progress is being made to address the city's infrastructure needs. With that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. Actually, more of a request. Can we get that PowerPoint emailed to us as well as posted onto PrimeGov so that it is accessible? Thank you so much. That was all.
Counselor Garcia, Michael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. And thank you to the entire finance team and Director Wheeler for your presentation. I really appreciate that. I do got some questions regarding capital infrastructure project funds and whatnot. As Director Oster just mentioned, that some projects are impacted. Could we get an update, or can you tell us what projects are impacted by funding?
Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council and Councilor Garcia, we do have a listing of the appropriations that are impacted. I want to make the distinction between a project and an appropriation. As we talked about at the beginning of my remarks, one appropriation doesn't fund a full project. So a project may be moving forward despite an appropriation being impacted by the audit status. So we do have a list of those appropriations that are impacted. And I believe it was included in the legislative priorities resolution materials that was presented at Public Works and Utilities earlier this week. So it is proceeding through the process with the resolution for legislative priorities.
So I guess, thank you, Director Oster, for that response. I'm a little unclear. So you're saying the 5 priority areas that we're requesting through the legislative resolution, those 5 are impacted? What can you further clarify what funding is impacted by the audit?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia. I think what Director Oster was saying is that this list of appropriations that are from fiscal year 2021 and 2022 that are impacted by the audit, that document is attached to the legislative priorities packet in PrimeGov. And I can also answer the other part of your question. As Director Oster said, some projects that you'll see listed in these appropriations lists are underway and moving forward. For instance, Midtown. So that Midtown has 2 outstanding legislative appropriations for a little over $2.1 million together. But the governing body is making sure that project moves forward. And then when we get these appropriations, I'm sure they'll be quite helpful to us right at that point as we're beginning to look at investing in infrastructure. So that's one good example of a project that's moving forward. Southside Teen Center is another one that has an appropriation on the list, but that project is moving forward unhindered by this. And when we do receive that appropriation, it'll certainly provide an opportunity for us to make much needed improvements and a response to, opening and learning about the facility. There are a couple of projects that will just wait and continue until we get the funds and then start them, partly because you could see how many projects we have underway. We really need to focus on those projects and get those done and then start new projects. So it actually works out well that there's sort of money building up in our wings for new projects that will start as soon as we get that. And that would include the Governor Miles improvements. So that one has 2 appropriations, and it'll be great when we do get that money. It'll be perfect timing to start that project, and we'll have enough to start well into design. Another example, let's see, another project that is going to wait for that. Here's Swan Park Phase 2 is on the list. That project is moving forward. It's in design. This funding is for construction. So by when it arrives, it'll be actually really good timing to help us fund the construction that's under design right now. So that's kind of the flavor that we're talking about, Councilor Garcia, that is not black and white. Projects that are in process are being ensured to move forward timely. And some of the projects that haven't started, it's really best to wait till we focus on some of the ones and finish the ones we're working on. And when this money arrives, it'll be perfect timing to start those.
Thank you so much, Director Wheeler. I really appreciate that clarification. If the governing body could please get sent the list of those items that are on the, I'll call it the wait list, just in case constituents reach out to us. We know where the project stands. So I guess that's one request. If we can get those items that are on the wait list be sent to us. Earlier, I thought Director Oster had mentioned that there was maybe some items where the city will have to cover the expenses for. Did I hear that correctly?
Mayor Pro Tem and councilors, Councilor Garcia, I think in nearly every case that I'm aware of, the city will contribute to these capital projects. So I would say, yes, I think that is an accurate statement, and I think that's a normal part of the process. It's the city contributes funding to support capital infrastructure projects.
Okay. And given that there is some of these capital infrastructure projects that are requiring appropriations and DFA is not releasing them, are we making sure we're incorporating these costs into budgeting as we plan, whether it's for the remainder of the fiscal year 23 or fiscal year 24 budget, just in case we need that? But are we planning for the city to cover those expenses until we get reimbursed?
I'm sorry. I think I was speaking to Director Oster when you finished your question, and the city doesn't budget for their matching until we get a grant, and we want to preserve money as a match. So for instance, when we did the teen center, we had $5 million of legislative appropriations. When it was time to award the contract for construction, that's when the city budgeted their funds. So it's at those points when we want to actually execute a contract, then the city budgets their funds.
Okay, understandable. But I think my question more so revolves around, are there projects where we were anticipating submitting for reimbursement from DFA where these projects were not, that may or may not happen? And does the city have the mechanism as we're planning to budget for those resources, I guess? Because I'm assuming there are some instances where we would have hoped that the budget would be in, appropriation access from DFA wouldn't have been impacted, but seems like there might be that. And just wondering, just so we can appropriately budget for resources that were unexpected expenses that we would ultimately get reimbursed for, but we have to cover them on the front end.
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, and Councilor Garcia, I think we're not at that point yet. And I think based on the completion date by June 30th of the audits, I don't expect us to get to that point. I just want to reiterate that for those appropriations where we have agreements in place with DFA, they are reimbursing us. So we're not having to find alternative sources for those funds. And those projects that Director Wheeler showed us that are under construction largely fall into that category. In the case where we're finding alternative funding sources, perhaps through city funds, where we're front loading the city funds rather than expending them at the end of the project, those go through the normal budgeting process and would come to you for approval.
Okay, thank you so much, Director Oster. I really appreciate that. I guess one last question, and I don't know if it was on the list in the presentation that Director Wheeler gave. Airport parking and airport in general, where do we stand with that, and how is that project moving forward?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and councilors, Councilor Garcia. That project, while the parking lot isn't paved, it became part of a very large project of the entire terminal expansion, which is a new building being added, total remodel of the existing terminal, as well as creation of a new access road and circulation road and the parking lot. So it is going along well. The last I looked closely at it, all of the, they had a lot of utility work to do. So it got messier before it got better. And so now they're coming out of the ground well, and it's moving along really well. And it's funny because in a lot of people, including some of the people that we can thank for the great appropriations that we received, would have hoped to have a paved parking lot by now. But it's actually part of a larger project and it's going in a logical sequence so that subsurface work can be done, drainage and grading, and all those kinds of things. And so I'm sorry for how long it takes, but we ended up with a really fantastic project from a number of appropriations that'll end up with a really good result. And so that's how that's going.
Thank you, Director Wheeler. Appreciate that update. With that, I don't have any other questions. I do appreciate the time you've given us tonight, Director Wheeler, Director Oster, and Mr. Bejarano. Appreciate the updates. No other questions, Madam Pro Tem.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Counselor Romero Worth.
Just quickly, I want to congratulate the city and the staff on the bond rating. That is fantastic news. And I think it is going to position us well so that when we are ready to go out for bonds, we will be in the strongest position possible to do that. And so that is a really big deal. And I just want to wish everyone congratulations on that. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Romero Worth, and thank you for the presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem, it looks to me almost as if Councilor Rivetta's hand is up in the participant side. I can't tell if he has a question to ask or not.
I do, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Is it okay to ask my question now?
Please, Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Director Oster and Director Wheeler. My question is more about future. Do we know if there are any future grants, FAA, water, even local state grants that may be in jeopardy?
Mayor Pro Tem and councilors, Councilor Rivera. So federal grants are not impacted by this issue at this point. It's only state funding, primarily state funding administered by the Department of Finance and Administration. And then as far as the legislative priorities, those appropriations wouldn't be available until after June 30th anyway, the next round of 2023 legislative appropriations. So we don't anticipate any future impacts.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions? Okay, thank you again. Moving on to the next presentation, it's City of Santa Fe Water Update. And welcome, Director Roach.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the governing body. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to give an update from City of Santa Fe Water. And this update is available in the packet material, and it's also available at santafenm.gov/water. And what we've sort of landed on a standard update format. So if there are things that I'm not showing that you would like to see, let me know now or offline. But I'm going to go through a couple different sort of charts and then speak to them as I talk about them. So this first chart shows the water that we have produced through the first 9 months of the year. And this is actually at a daily time step, so it's fairly noisy. A few things to point out on this plot. The light blue shading is the water we produce from the Santa Fe River. The dark blue shading is water that we diverted from the Rio Grande, which is actually Colorado River water. And the orange is water diverted from the Buckman well field. And the yellow is water diverted from the city well field. The gray line that's moving along the top is actual water that we delivered to customers through their meters. And you can see that generally we produce more water than we deliver. And in fact, on average, it's about 9% more, which is called non-revenue water so far this year. But there are times when we actually are delivering more water than we're producing. And the way that works is that we have the storage tanks throughout the system that allow us to some days produce more and some days produce less, but always have that water available to deliver to the customers. A couple things to point out on this graph is that the Buckman direct diversion was mostly offline throughout most of August due to high turbidity in the Rio Grande. Means that it was muddy because of monsoon events. And when it gets muddy enough, we stop diversions there because it increases the treatment costs. So that's kind of the noisy daily plot. And then the next plot I would show is a monthly roll up, sort of showing cumulatively. Now we're rolling this up as a cumulative production, and we're looking at the total surface water that we have produced, which is in blue, and the total groundwater that we've produced, which is in orange. And one of the things we like to say is that the surface water is our checkings account. We know what's there and we prefer to use that. The groundwater is generally our savings account, and we try to save that with a caveat. So the chart on the right shows that we estimate approximately 4,500 acre feet per year that we could produce from our groundwater sources without impacting the long-term availability of that resource. And what that means is that so far this year, we've used about a third of that. And so we expect that, again, as has been the case for the last 10 years and more, the average water levels in our well fields will rise again this year. So we're doing a good job of using the checking account and letting the savings account rebuild. We have used, so far we're at about 76% production of surface water and the rest from groundwater. And through September of this year, we're using about 1% more than we used last year. The next chart I would like to show is our reservoir storage. And this is combined. On the left, we see the combined reservoir storage in the Santa Fe River reservoirs. And on the right, we see the combined reservoir storage on the Chama system of our San Juan Chama water. The dark blue lines are this year. And then the dotted red line, the lower line is last year, 2021. And the higher dashed orange, yellow line is 2020. So some of the things that we can see from a reservoir storage perspective is that we had good rains, and we now have more water in the Santa Fe River reservoirs for this time of year than we saw at the same time of the year, either of the past 2 years. So that's a nice change. And then I would point out the magnitude of these. We're looking at 1,500 acre feet roughly for Santa Fe River storage. That's on the order of 2 months of demand, whereas the graph on the right is 13,000 acre feet. So that's more than a year. It's more like a year and a half worth of demand. So you can see the magnitude of storage that we have is certainly, almost 10 times larger for San Juan Chama water as compared to Santa Fe River water. A couple of miscellaneous updates. The San Juan Chama return flow project status update is we are actively working on getting a contractor under contract for the engineering design, and a request for approval of a $3.8 million contract for that engineering design started through committee this week. We're hoping that design will be 100% complete by the middle of 2024. On the permitting side of things, we expect quite a few documents out on the NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act permitting side of things in the first half of 2023. And on the OSE, the Office of the State Engineer permitting side, which sort of relates to water rights, we have that application has been received and docketed, and there are 2 protestants that we're working with on that. And then finally, the lower Santa Fe River planning process, which is being led by the county, and they're working on an RFP for mediation services. And then for the sort of last bit of this update, I wanted to give you an overview of our long-range water planning effort. And specifically, we have now developed water use projections for the city out to 2100, and the county is working on doing the same thing. And the last few charts here just sort of give an overview of that. Our long-range planning process, which we're calling Santa Fe 2100 because it goes out until 2100, we've broken out into 5 chunks that occur over several years, and it started in 2020 when we defined the planning process and solicited public feedback on that and developed a finalized approach. And then this year, we're building the demand projections. And there will be some webinars where we deliver this information to the public and accept questions and answer those questions for a period of time. And then next year, we're waiting on supply projections, which is essentially the projections from the global climate change models. We need help from third-party experts to take all that information and downscale it and make it accessible to us at the level at which we look at it. And we'll put that together with the demand projections and look at what potential shortages may occur. And that'll be done with an operations model that we have of our own system. And then following that would be adaptation strategies. This is where, again, the public is invited to participate, not just to hear what we're doing, but actually provide feedback. And then finally, that would roll into 40 and 80-year plans. And we're targeting the end of 2025 for those. So I will now kind of drill in on these demand projections that we're rolling out this month, or actually next month. And essentially the demand projections are a combination of what we think the city population will do in the next 80 years. And so this graph shows a historical sort of city utility served population, which we estimated about 85,000 people currently, rising all the way to 130,000 by 2100. Details on this and how this was developed will be part of these webinars. And then the other piece we need is, on average, how much water does each person use? And so this graph shows actual historical per capita usage from 2000 through 2020. And I would be remiss if I went through a presentation and didn't give kudos to everyone who has come before us on amazing conservation and reducing, the average water use from, around 170 in 1995 to around 90 now. So incredible conservation. And you see that in that black line. And we've developed a model to sort of estimate where that will go in the future. And that's the dotted green line. And it is influenced by climate change. So it drops to below 80 in, say, the 2030s, but then it starts to rise up again. If you take the population and the average water use and you multiply them together, you get a projection for how much water we need to produce. And the dark line shows actual from 1950 through 2020. And the dotted heaviest dark line shows our current projection. And then a bunch of other dotted lines we're showing here, which are our projections from previous planning studies. And so we can see that we've consistently overestimated where we would end up, at least by 2020. And we realized in our last planning effort that the amount of uncertainty we had with future demand was as large as the uncertainty associated with climate change. And so we're working hard to improve these methods to try and hone in on the projection a little bit. So those three graphs are sort of summary graphs from a larger slide deck where we will go through how we developed those numbers. And those, we will give 2 webinars on November 15th, one at 9 a.m. and one at 7 p.m. The exact same information will be presented both times. And this information is also available on our website. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Director Roach. Councilor Romero Worth.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I just want to go back to the projected per capita usage slide. And hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot. So we call this GPCD. So average gallons per capita per day. And right now the city uses what level of GCPD?
It's a tongue twister. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the governing body, Councilor Romero Worth, We're now at about 90, and it varies a little bit. It goes up and down each year depending on when we have really good rains, it's a little bit lower. When we don't have rains, it's a little bit higher because that impacts how much water people use outdoors.
And in the region, in the area, we are a leader in our conservation, and it's shown by this very statistic. What are typical GCPD levels around, if I'm not putting you on the spot too much? Like, can you just for kind of comparison, so that people understand really?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. And I would approximately say that Albuquerque is maybe in the 130s and they're targeting the 120s. And that larger cities that, you know, you hear about in the Colorado Basin, because there's a lot of attention there, are more in the 150s or trying to get to the 150s. So the city of Santa Fe is a leader in conservation, and the 90 GPCD number is we don't see that low of a number in cities of our size that I'm aware of when we look around.
Yeah, and I think that's just a really important point to emphasize, and for people to get some context about, and it's a number that helps illustrate, you know, we hear fairly frequently that we are a leader in conservation, and I think we've talked before about how our conservation efforts have been ongoing for years. We've done a number of things that other cities are just starting to do, and we recognize their importance many years ago. And so we continue to kind of push forward into what should we be doing next. And I just think, and also this community, you know, holds dearly the value of conserving water and using that precious resource very wisely. And so this statistic is definitely, or this measurement is definitely one of the ways we see that. So I applaud the city and the people who came before us in getting us to this moment, and also the community at large for really embracing conservation. So I don't know if you have anything to add, but I wanted to draw that out.
Thank you. That's very well put. I don't really have anything to add other than throwing out that in the last 25 years, we've decreased our total water production by 33%, while we grew the number of people served by 25%. That's another way to sort of summarize this incredible achievement through conservation. And it is where we start whenever we look to the future, we start with conservation, and then we build from there.
Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you, Director Roach, very much. These are always concise. I appreciate them. I would just make one quick comment that on page 4, we have an estimated renewable water of about 12,000 acre feet per year. And then if you advance to page 11, it looks like we have a usage that finally hits that number right at the turn of the next century. So that's terrific. It's good planning. I know between now and then we'll find more sources, but I really appreciate how clearly this is presented to us. Thank you.
And Mayor Pro Tem, if you don't mind me just also stating, that's a very perceptive of you to put those two things together. But the piece missing in the chart that shows 12,000 is that's currently sort of estimated over the last 10 years. And the big player in there is climate change. And so that will change unless we do something else. And of course, you know, we're doing other things.
That's what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, let's see, where are we? We're moving on to the consent agenda. And I believe the first item is item J, pulled by Councilor Michael Garcia. Would you read us into that, please?
Absolutely. You are correct. It's item J. It's request for the approval of state of New Mexico Aging and Long-Term Services Department Capital Appropriation Project Grant Agreement. It's A20E5290 in the total amount of $827,000 for the purchase of Mary Esther Gonzalez Senior Center vehicles. This has a term ending in June 30th of 2024, and Mr. Rinaldi, our Senior Services Director, is available for this item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Counselor Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Gino. Wish I was there to be down there with you this evening. First, I just want to thank you so much for your dedicated and tireless efforts for our senior community. This appropriation really shows how committed we are to supporting our seniors in our community, and so thank you for bringing this forward. I think one of the things we really need to focus on as we're coming out of this pandemic, or trying to come out of it, is how much critical services our seniors in our community need. And the transportation services that Mr. Rinaldi, you and your team provide to our seniors on a daily basis is the impact is endless. So thank you for that, and thank you for looking at bringing in a new fleet for our seniors. It's one of those, we need to get folks out of their home. I think especially with our senior population, the pandemic has had folks isolated, which was concerning to a lot of folks. And with these new vehicles, hopefully we'll have seniors be back out in the community getting their daily tasks done and enriching their lives. So I didn't really have any questions. I just wanted to thank you, Gino, for bringing this forward. And maybe if you want to provide any update to the governing body, what kind of vehicles are going to be purchased with this appropriation. I know that it's going to go out for RFP, so I don't know if that's been decided yet, but anything you might want to add, but more so just want to thank you and your team for all the effort that you on a daily basis put forward to support our seniors in our community.
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, councilors, I appreciate that. You're right. It's basically replacing existing vehicles. During the COVID, we ran the heck out of those home delivered trucks. And so we're probably going to need to replace a few of those, and then same thing with the transit vans and whatnot. The biggest problem we're going to have is the vehicles have gone up in cost, as well as the timeline to get vehicles is way out there. So that's going to be a fun process, and we look forward to it. We just got to keep our other ones running and going well. The timeline is probably doable. What we got was a GEO bond, which is different than the severance tax bonds. So they have a timeline that's somewhat finite. So we'll work on that. We'll get that stuff going, and we should have some good vehicles. It's just trying to decide which are the right ones. We keep trying new vehicles or new styles every year, and or every time we get some, and then we always find something wrong with them. So hopefully we can get something that works well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi. And if I could put in a little push for electric vehicles at any rate, if we can incorporate that into the mix, that'd be awesome. But with that, no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi. Motion to approve, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Counselor Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Rinaldi, so is there any idea of, and I've heard this from different people, but do you have any idea when you might be looking after replacing the transportation bus or the activities bus, the big bus?
Madam
I think it has to be fixed, sorry, because we've got people on Zoom
On Zoom, yes.
and they can't hear you without it.
Yeah, oh, there it is.
It's okay. Checked it.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. This, that bus is an anomaly. And in that, I don't believe you'll see another big bus like that bought for a municipality. And was bought through state deal bonds or severance tax monies. And no one else has one. And all the communities around the state want one. And they're jealous of us. But it's something that we try to keep alive. It's rather old considering the how good it looks. We keep trying to do maintenance and keep it going. But it's gonna at some point see its better days. And then we'll have to figure out what we'll do. But we're starting to plan some trips and try to get things going again. We ran it during the summer a little bit. So I think it'll work. But it's seen better days.
Thank you. And I know that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but I do appreciate Councilor Mike Garcia pulling this and having at least some informational about it, because our seniors are definitely, we have to take care of them. And, replacing obviously vehicles that have depreciated or are no longer functioning cost more to maintain and upkeep than what they're worth, what their value is. And so that was just something that came to my mind as we had this discussion. And some people have reached out to me in regards to if there was any intention to replace that bus at some point in the future. But I appreciate the information. Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Just to confirm, Counselor O'Meara Worth, you were the second on that item.
Yes, I was.
All
Thank
right,
you.
perfect. Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor O'Meara Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindell.
Yes,
Motion has been approved.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes, our next item is item N. It's consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilwoman Villarreal and Counselor Rivera. It's a resolution extending the term of the Community Health and Safety Task Force until June 30th, 2023, to allow the task force to complete its duties and responsibilities. And Julie Sanchez, our Youth and Family Services Division Director, is available for this item.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez, for being here. I pulled this item. I really don't have any questions on it. I just had a comment that I have a concern of conflict of interest in talking with city attorney. She says that I think I can say that you said it was not your opinion, or that we didn't have information to say that it was rose to the level of being against our policies, procedures, code. But I just personally have concern that we have a paid lobbyist on the task force, with one of the areas that the task force is working on that is the discipline that person does work in. So that's the only comment that I had on it. So I don't really have any questions for you, Ms. Sanchez. Other comments, other questions? Councilor Romero Worth.
I'd move to approve this item if that's appropriate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor O'Meara Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Landell.
I'll abstain.
All right, motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. Could you take us to the next item, please?
Yes, the next item is item P. It's consideration of a resolution sponsored by Counselor Romero Worth, Counselor Cassett, and Councilwoman Villarreal. It's a resolution calling on the New Mexico State Legislature to take action during the 2023 legislative session to end driver's license suspensions for failure to pay and failure to appear. And Mr. Hibner is available for this item.
Move to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. I pulled this item. The reason that I pulled it, and I'm just bear with me for a second. I'm trying to pull it up on my. There it is. Reason that I pulled it is on page 3. I'm having a hard time making this come up, but I'm almost there. Thank you for bearing with me. On page 3, the final now therefore, I felt like that needed an amendment, which should be in your packet, that carried over what was the qualifier on page 3, line 4. So I brought that forward as an amendment, which requests that on page 3, line 23, after pay, we insert, when such suspensions are the result of failure to appear or failure to pay for non-highway safety violations. So that's an amendment, just a qualifier on it, the same qualifier that was used previously on the page. And I will make a motion to approve on that amendment.
Second, for the sake of discussion.
Counselor Cassett?
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Lindell. I'm sorry, can you please direct me? I'm trying to find it in the resolution where that is used before. It's on page.
Page 3.
No, I'm sorry, where it's used before. Because you said it's used earlier in the resolution and I'm trying to find the.
Correct, page 3,
Oh, thank-
line 4.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Hibner, just, does this change the overall message of this resolution?
Mayor Lindell, Councilor Cassett, I think it would change in the sense that instead of all failures to appear or failure to pays, calling on them, the legislature to make changes to not suspend anymore, I think it limits it a little bit more to, there could be some class of offenses that could still be suspended for failing to appear or failing to pay.
And can you give me some more details over which those would be? Do we have those? If we're looking at non-highway safety violations, what would be qualified there?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Cassett, non-highway safety violations isn't defined in the motor vehicle code. So I'm not sure if I'm in a position to give examples of what would fall under non-highway safety violations.
Okay, thank you. I will yield the floor for now.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. Hibner. So we passed an ordinance earlier this year that does something similar. Would this amendment be in line with what we did earlier, or would it? Because I think what we're trying to do here is we passed a local ordinance that says you can't have your driver's license suspended for particular reasons. And this resolution is suggesting that this would be what we passed would be a good statewide law. And so would this amendment change or say something differently than what we've done here locally?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Romero Worth. Maybe potentially, and I say like that because, like I said earlier, I think that adding the non-highway safety violations, I think it restricts it a little bit further than what we did as a city. So what the city did, or what the governing body did, was restrict the municipal court from notifying MVD for any, in that case, it was failure to pay. So I think it's slightly different.
City Attorney McSherry, I don't know if you want to say anything. You're making faces.
Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem Lindell and Councilor Merworth, I agree with what Prosecutor Hibner is saying. It does provide some sort of a limitation on which ones we would ask the governor and the legislature to take action on. But because it isn't a defined term, it's not totally clear how that would be interpreted. We have that idea in the resolution before, so I felt comfortable signing it. But I don't know how it will be interpreted necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I did make the second on this, but I think I will be voting against it because I wish we had had this conversation at the committee level and maybe a little bit more time to think about this and look at the state and the definitions that you were just flagging. And so I'm a little wary to change this at the last minute. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I would comment that I am too. However, it's just taking its own wording from previously in the resolution and putting it as the qualifier, which the resolution already has said. My question would be, the way that it's worded now is to end driver's license suspensions for failure to appear and failure to pay. So is our intention that if someone gets a DWI and they have a failure to appear and they never appear, and that we shouldn't take action and go ahead and look at that person to suspend their driver's license?
Mayor Pro Tem.
I mean, there's no qualifier whatsoever on line 23.
Mayor Pro Tem, I think that is what it's saying.
That is what it's saying.
Just if there's a failure to appear for a failure to pay. Now, I just want to point out that there are that this doesn't affect other ways someone can get a license either suspended or revoked. For example, on a DWI, there's often an administrative civil side of the acting against someone's license, where the motor vehicle department will potentially revoke someone's license if they're arrested for a DWI.
City Attorney McSherry.
Thank you. Pro Tem Lindell, and I guess this may be a question for the prosecutor. There's other things that could happen if someone doesn't fit, it doesn't show, does not appear or does not, they could have a bench warrant, that type of thing as well, right? That revoking a driver's license is not the only potential penalty for that situation. Is that accurate?
Mayor Pro Tem, City Attorney McCary, yes, that's accurate. If someone doesn't show up to a court hearing, the court can issue a bench warrant. And if someone's ultimately served on that, you know, I suppose a consequence could be that they could be kept in custody until they have the court date. In terms of failing to pay, the court also has tools at its disposal to, I guess, force compliance in paying, such as, for example, for the municipal court, they'll set a failure to comply hearing, and at that hearing, they can work with the person to try to get compliance in terms of fees owed, or perhaps even work out an alternative resolution. What I mean by that is a community service in lieu of fines and fees, or assess ability to pay at that point. Now, if they don't show up to that failure to comply hearing, they can issue a bench warrant at that point too.
Thank you. I'm just, what this is asking though, the way that it's worded here is asking to end driver's license suspensions for failure to appear and failure to pay. And however nebulous the term non-highway safety violations is, that was the qualifier that already exists in the resolution that I was proposing that we minimally put on there. So that's the reason for that. I'm not comfortable to just leave it wide open that if you fail to appear or you fail to pay, we don't want your driver's license suspended. I think there are circumstances that we do want driver's license suspended. But that's my opinion and what I brought forward in the most diluted form that I could find, using the words of the resolution to do that. So any other questions, any other comments? If not, would you call the roll, please? This is on the amendment.
Yes, roll call on the amendment. Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera. You might already.
No, I'm still here. No.
Okay. Counselor Romero Worth,
No.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
No.
Counselor Cassett,
No.
Counselor Chavez,
No.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia.
No.
Amendment was not approved.
Okay, moving on to motion. We have a motion and a second on the resolution. Could we have do we have any comments? Let's have a roll call.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindell.
No.
All right, motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item, please. Would you read us into that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, action item 10A is request for approval of amendment number 5 to an agreement for legal services. It's item number 21-0399 with Mondrell, Sperling, Roll, Harrison, Sisk, PA to increase the compensation by $80,000 and extend the term through December 31st, 2023 for a total compensation of $281,937.50, including gross receipts taxes.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? Was there a reason that this didn't come to finance?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Lindell and counselors, basically the amount spent this last month was just so rapid. I didn't have time to bring it to both committee and to council. We need the additional funds in the contract now. We produced over, I think, 5,000 records recently in Discovery. That's required a lot of review by council and staff.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't see any other hands up. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Marworth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindell.
Yes,
Motion has been approved.
thank you very much. Moving on to matters from the city manager. City Manager Blair.
I'm sorry. Madam
What?
Pro Tem, I was used to doing this at 2:30 in the morning. I wasn't ready. I kid. A little reference to last week. First of all, just want to flag for all the counselors in person and on Zoom that we had a senior staff meeting earlier this week and JD Billington, our lobbyist, came, and it was really productive for him to be able to meet all of our senior staff, get to know a little bit more about the work that we're doing. We continue to engage with him really directly on moving our priorities forward this session, and we're excited to have him do some additional work with all of us and all of you. We are, along the same lines, still working to schedule the legislative breakfast for probably early December, either the first or second week of December. We hope to have that locked down sometime in the next week. Earlier today, sent you an update on the charts special meeting, the study session that we're going to be having on November 2nd. It's been decided that we will hold it here in the chambers. We had a productive discussion with the Artful Life consultants earlier today. We would like to collectively ask if you have questions that you know you're intending to ask, if we can get those from you by Friday at 5 o'clock. That way we can get them to Artful Life over the weekend and they can have answers prepared, which we think will go a long way towards saving time and being a more productive conversation around what's in the chart report. Quick reminder that our first time Dia de los Muertos events are this weekend here at the city of Santa Fe. It's very exciting. Hope you all can make sure your constituents know about it and participate. Earlier this month on 13th, my deputy city manager, Leila Archuleta-Mayasis, did send you all the updated list of all the contracts that I have signed above the $60,000 threshold. Please feel free to reach out to her. I know at least one of you has followed up with some additional questions. And I apologize that that had fallen by the wayside for a few months, but we want to make sure that you have all that information handy. I will flag, it appears as though the new lock we put on the door works. We were not attempting to haze Councilor Garcia. I think Councilor Cassett has suggested to me that maybe this should be the way we make the meetings end early, is once you go out the door, you can't get back in. We think the lock is, first of all, malfunctioning. And so ultimately, when we get that fixed, we will have a code that all the counselors and staff who are here for meetings at night are able to access. It will likely change periodically, but I apologize for inadvertently locking anyone out, and we'll get that fixed as quickly as possible. And then just a flag for anyone who's tuning in tonight or still listening, a reminder that we have a general election on November 8th. Regardless of your political party or affiliation, please make sure that you go vote. Early voting continues through November 6th at any location in Santa Fe. All staff are given 2 hours of administrative leave on election day on November 8th to go vote if they haven't already voted. I have encouraged all staff to do what I did last Friday, which is to take my lunch hour and walk over to the county building and cast my vote. So we're hoping to have a great turnout here in Santa Fe. And that is it for me tonight. Thank you, Madam Pro Tem.
Thank you, City Manager Blair. Matters from the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lindell, councilors. We will be circulating a request for policy research form for your review and feedback soon. We have a draft of that we're working on so that you can give better, I think, direction to the policy team as to what it is that would be helpful to you, whether it's examples from another jurisdiction or an analysis of a particular issue, or a legal answer. This is legal, this is not legal, thumbs up, thumbs down, that type of thing. So we're gonna be circulating that soon. And if you have ideas on what could be more helpful on it, we definitely appreciate your feedback. And then I do recommend we go into executive session for our quarterly update of pending and threatened litigation.
Counselor Romero Worth, would you take us, would you read us into executive session, please?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I move that we go to, let's see. I move that we go into an executive session. Bear with me. And I believe we are going into executive session to discuss threatened or pending litigation, correct? So pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1H, Subpart 7. Hold on, just lost that. For discussion or threatened or pending litigation in which the governing body is or may be a participant.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett, Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera.
I think he's left the meeting.
I think he has also, Mayor Pro Tem Lindell,
Yes.
motion has been approved.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure how it works for bringing Counselor Villarreal and Counselor Garcia into executive session.
Yes, I would like to note you will be receiving your executive session link momentarily. So Counselor Garcia and Counselor Villarreal, if you'd like to log out of this meeting, you'll be getting a link for the executive session.
You want the blanket of the mayor's couch?
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. You tried some options.
Hi, Michael. I don't see the governing body.
Yeah, I think there's some tech challenges might be happening. So, but even though it looks like I'm in chamber, I'm
I know.
not.
Hi, Carl. We miss seeing you in person.
Oh, looks like it's coming back. There we go.
We can hear you. Are you not hearing us?
Now we hear you.
Now we hear you and now we see you.
We, Counselor Romero Worth has read the document bringing us back into session. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
All right, Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
right, Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Lindell.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right.
Next on the agenda, matters from the city clerk.
Yes, I will be brief. I just want to note, we all lived through the launch of the new website. We have a new web content specialist that'll be starting with us next week. So we're really excited to get meetings on the schedule with departments and get additional updates to our website. We're also really excited. We're in the interview process for a multimedia coordinator, which is very exciting. And then just a few quick events. We do have a ribbon cutting this week on Friday for the new roundabout at Camino Entrada, which is right near the police station. So we will have EV vehicles, our electric vehicles, and some bicycles and members from BPAC to kind of give the roundabout a first whirl. We're trying to be more creative with our ribbon cuttings. So that's where that came from. And I know Councilor Cassett will have some more details, but I do just want to note that we have the Lafarge Fall Harvest Festival in conjunction with Councilor Cassett, reading of a spooky Halloween story, and of course, pumpkin painting, lots of fun items. I will let Councilor Cassett give more details on that. And then I just want to do a save the date. We will be doing a Veterans Day concert. We'll have a band on the bandstand. So I will be sending out a save the date for that with additional information, but that will be on Veterans Day at 11 a.m. on the plaza. As John mentioned, we have our first Dia de Muertos event on the plaza this weekend as well. And I think that that's probably a quick hit for me. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Communications from the governing body. We'll start over way to my right with Councilor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. No real updates. Just want to wish everybody a happy Festivus weekend with the Dia de Muertos event. Sorry, getting a little tongue-tied. Taking place Friday and Saturday, as well as Halloween on Monday. So everybody be safe, stay warm, look out for those trick-or-treaters Monday night. And yeah, have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't really have anything other than to say hello to my colleagues. I'm home because my partner has COVID and didn't want to subject anybody to potential spread. So just we're seeing more people have or get COVID, as we've been seeing for our staff at the city, and just want everybody to be safe. And I don't know, maybe we need to wear masks again. It's coming up again. So please be safe. And just wanted to wish everybody a safe and fun Halloween. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Please stay safe. Councilor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Just want to, wish everybody a safe Dia de los Muertos and Halloween on Monday. Just quick point of caution for everyone. And again, we celebrate the day, we go out and trick or treating and so on. And to all the parents out there, please be very, very diligent with your children. especially with the type of drugs that are out there in our communities. I think I've had conversations with many people, parents are very concerned about the fentanyl pills that look just like candies. And I think that's something that people really do need to be aware about and, be safe out there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Lindell. A couple things. I forgot to pull it during consent, but I did want to bring attention to the funding that we received for the Arroyo de los Chamisos crossing. We will be having an additional public meeting soon to talk about some of the finalizations in the design. I really want to thank Director Wheeler, Eric Ani at the MPO, our contractors, Leroy Pacheco, and the rest of the team working on this project and really taking into consideration the wide variety of concerns and needs and desires that is going into this crossing. I always say that this crossing the discussion around it is older than I am. And so there really has been a lot of conversation. So that will be forthcoming. I think we're finalizing dates. It'll most likely be a virtual discussion, but I really do want to encourage members of the public to be coming to this public meeting. And I'm really grateful for the team for doing an additional public meeting, and really grateful that we received the funding so that we can move forward with the design. The event at Lafarge that will be happening on Saturday. So that'll be from 3 to 5. Everybody's welcome. We encourage costumes. As Christine mentioned, there will be, we'll read some stories. There'll be some treats. There'll be some pumpkin painting. I love Halloween. So I'm really excited to be getting this going for the community. I know that there are a ton of really fun events for everybody this weekend. So I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities for people to get out and celebrate. We've talked about Dia de los Muertos, so very excited that is coming to the plaza. And then I also wanted to mention that tomorrow, let me get the details up. I'm going to be participating on a panel that is being hosted by HomeWise. They're calling it the Child Care Facilities Toolbox, and it's talking about the funding and building of facilities for childcare. So I'm very honored that I will be included on this panel with a number of experts from around the state and the country to talk about how we can support childcare in the area of making sure that there are facilities that are affordable and that are really set up to create a good environment for kiddos. Other than that, I hope everybody has a wonderful and safe weekend and enjoys the holidays in the coming week. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Romero Worth.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have one really quick thing. I want to give a shout out to our IT folks who helped acquire a new microphone in the chamber. The old one was cutting out in our marathon meeting, and it's very nice to have a new one. So want to thank them for working on that and getting that fixed. And otherwise, just happy Halloween, everyone. Happy Dia de los Muertos, and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Chavez.
Thank you. I don't have much tonight other than I want to wish everyone a happy holiday weekend, happy Halloween. I want to also emphasize what Counselor Lee Garcia said in being cautious when it comes to trick-or-treating this year. Check your kiddos' candy. I think we've always said that, but it's like something that is incredibly necessary right now. So please take time to check your kiddos' candy. Have a safe Halloween and a fun weekend. There are so many events going on this weekend. There's going to be so much fun to be had by families. So I hope you all enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. I don't have any items to bring forward, and other than all the good cheer and good wishes that have already been expressed here. So moving along, we have introduction of legislation. I will read into the record for Mayor Weber. a resolution approving the exchange and transfer of 2 tracts of city-owned real property to the state of New Mexico in exchange for 6 tracts of state-owned real property located within the city. The committee review is listed there, and Madam Clerk, do we have, going to petitions from the floor? We have no one in chambers. Do we have anyone in the Zoom room waiting to speak to us?
We do have members of the public, but if anyone is interested in speaking under petitions from the floor, please raise your virtual hand and we will call on you. Mayor Pro Tem Lindell, no one is raising their hand right now, so.
Okay, we will move on with our agenda. Item 17 is null, as is item 18, as is 19. Going on to item 20, appointments, Charter Review Commission. Do we need to take a vote on this? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you read the names?
Absolutely. The next item on our agenda is item 20A. It's appointments. These are for the Charter Review Commission. We have Paul Durdak, Maria Perez, Alicia Montoya, Peter Ives, John Paul Granillo, Alba Blondes, Sarah Amador Guzman, Lily May Ortiz, and Nancy Long. And I believe we already have a motion and a second for this item.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Would you read the roll, please?
Absolutely. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindell.
Yes.
Motion has been approved for appointments.
Okay, so we're at the time of 7:30, which is when we typically adjourn. So I will go ahead and call us adjourned.
Thank you.
I was